What would you do if you knew how much you were being exploited? Thinking you've given your all only to realize it was all just a game of power and profit? I used to believe in loyalty to the company until one unexpected decision changed everything. Everything shifted in an instant, and I never imagined it would lead me to realize something that both the company and I had overlooked for so long. What happened next? You definitely won't be able to imagine. I still vividly remember the feeling when I first started that job. Just a small company but full of potential. When I took on the project management role, I thought it was simply an opportunity to learn and grow. At first, I was only managing 5 projects. A salary of $85,000 a year didn't seem too bad for someone just starting out. But deep down, I had a nagging doubt. I wondered if I really deserved that amount, or if the company was just paying me the minimum for what I was doing. Still, I didn't want to stir the waters. COVID-19 hit around that time, and I was worried about job instability. I didn't want to be the person adding pressure to the company during such a difficult period. So I just quietly kept working, trying to do my best with everything. But the more I worked, the more I realized my job wasn't just managing 5 projects anymore. I had to take on so many other tasks: problem solving, working with clients, negotiating, and handling urgent situations. These were no longer small projects. They were becoming complex and demanding, requiring me to work harder, be more patient, and give more of myself. As time went on, the workload only increased. After a year and a half, I was managing 20 projects simultaneously, with a team of 5 people under me. At this point, the pressure was real. These projects stretched on for months, sometimes even quarters, and the workload kept piling up with no end in sight. Every day, I woke up feeling like a machine, always running after tight deadlines, working late into the night, with no time to rest or take care of myself. And yet, my salary stayed the same, $85 a year. I had thought about negotiating a few times, but I was hesitant. Was I doing the right thing? Would the company think I was being greedy? Gradually, I realized something that became clearer than ever before. I was being exploited. While I worked tirelessly, giving my all, the company was simply taking advantage of me without giving any recognition in return. They had no intention of increasing my salary, even though I was handling so many tasks and facing greater pressure every day. I started to look around and noticed that my colleagues were in similar situations. Creative, hard-working people, dedicated to the company, but never being treated fairly. I began to feel like a pawn in a game, just running after orders without anyone ever considering my needs. One afternoon, after a long meeting, I sat alone in my office and asked myself if I could continue like this forever. Never before had I felt so strongly that I needed a change. Right then I realized that I had to take action. I was tired of feeling overlooked, of being forgotten by those at the top. For so long, I had lived in fear and hesitation, not daring to speak up for myself. But now I couldn't stay silent any longer, and so I decided. I would ask for a meeting with my boss to talk about my worth and request a salary that reflected the effort I had put in. But what I didn't know was that this decision would completely change my life, in a way I never could have imagined. When I decided to request a meeting with my boss, I had mentally prepared for what might happen. But I never imagined it would get as tense as it did. That day, as I walked into the meeting room, I felt a strange, unfamiliar feeling. I had rehearsed in my mind what I wanted to say so many times, yet my heart was pounding in my chest. I wanted to ask for double the salary, but I was afraid I might come across as greedy or even undeserving. A part of me was still questioning if I should even ask for that much, especially considering the company's struggles during the pandemic. Was I overdoing it? But then I thought about everything I had done. Managing 20 projects, working non-stop, sacrificing my personal time and health, and I felt that I deserved what I was asking for. I had to do this, not only for myself, but for the colleagues who were facing similar situations. The feeling of being unappreciated had eaten away at me for so long. And I couldn't continue like this any longer. The meeting began, and honestly, the atmosphere was thick with tension. My boss, a person who always maintained a stern and cold demeanor, started by asking about my work performance and the challenges I'd faced in the projects. I felt like my entire preparation was being pushed aside. But I decided not to let myself falter. I began to explain everything I had done, my contributions over the past months, and why I believed I deserved a higher salary. Things seemed to go okay at first, until my boss said something I'll never forget. "We know you've done well, but right now, the company can't meet your request. It's just not possible." I felt my heart drop. Disappointment hit me hard, but I couldn't let it show. I had prepared myself for the possibility that they might not agree, but I didn't expect to be so outright rejected. I bit my lip, struggling to keep my emotions in check. I tried to stand firm, but frustration and anger were bubbling inside me. How could they disregard all my hard work like this? In that moment, I felt like my loyalty to the company had become meaningless. After everything I had given, they saw me as just another tool, not a person. The meeting ended quickly, and I could do nothing but return to my desk, sit down, and stare at the computer screen. It felt as if I had been cornered, with no way out. But in that moment, I realized something important. I couldn't keep living with this kind of acceptance. I needed change, and I had to take action. And even though the decision was difficult, I knew it would change everything. Since that meeting, I felt like I was at a crucial crossroads. Part of me wanted to keep fighting, to demand that the company recognize my contributions, but another part of me felt completely drained, as if all my efforts had been in vain. I couldn't deny that disappointment had taken over my thoughts. How could the company not see everything I had done? In the days that followed, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept circling around one question. Is it worth it? Should I wait for another opportunity, or should I walk away and find something better? One morning as I sat in the office, I suddenly realized that I couldn't go on like this anymore. The stagnation, the lack of recognition, everything that once kept me patient now felt like chains, suffocating me. I couldn't continue to lock myself in a company that only used me, and I couldn't keep living on empty promises from people who never really cared about me. That's when I decided to act. No more waiting. I had once been patient, thinking I could change things by giving it a little more time, but that had never happened. I needed to take control of my future. I started looking for a new job. A month later, I received an interview invitation from another company. They had heard about me through a few people in the industry, and they needed someone like me to manage large projects. When I heard the salary offer, I could barely believe it, double what I was currently making. I accepted the interview, and within a few days, I had a formal offer with a salary of $160, something I never thought was possible. But while I was thrilled about the new opportunity, part of me felt a pang of regret. It felt like I was leaving everything behind, the years of hard work, the colleagues I had worked with. But I also realized that if I didn't leave now, I would never know my true worth. I couldn't continue to let the company treat me like someone they could easily overlook. When I told my boss that I was leaving, his reaction surprised me. He called me immediately saying, "We'll find a way to resolve the salary issue. Don't make a final decision yet." I just stared at the phone, feeling a mix of anger and satisfaction. Why couldn't they have done this earlier? Why did it take me deciding to leave for them to start acting? The decision was made, and nothing could change it. I handed over my responsibilities, and within 2 weeks, I was gone. At that point, I felt both relieved and a little empty. But what mattered most was that I knew I had made the right decision. 2 weeks after leaving my old company, I started my new job. The feeling when I stepped into this new environment was completely different. Here, I felt welcomed and recognized from day one. Everything was smooth and comfortable, a stark contrast to everything I had gone through before. The salary I received, along with the recognition from my colleagues and management, made me feel like I had finally found the right place to grow. However, while I was savoring this positive change, a part of me couldn't stop thinking about my old company. I thought back to the long hours, the sleepless nights, and the tense calls with clients. After all, I had spent so much time there. From time to time, I still received messages from my former colleagues asking how I was doing and sharing that the company was still struggling, unable to move forward because the projects were at a standstill. One day, I received an unexpected message from one of my old team members, Sarah. She wrote that all 5 of us had handed in our resignations and had already secured new positions. That caught me by surprise, but it wasn't entirely shocking. I had known that once I left, none of them would stay behind either, especially when there was no one to lead and share the burden of the work. Just a day later, I received a call from the high-level executive at my old company. I didn't expect to hear from him, but I answered the phone. "We want you to come back. We'll meet all your demands, anything you want," he said, his voice hurried and anxious, as if he didn't want me to go. His words made me feel a mix of pride and disbelief. They had missed me this much, but now it all felt too late. I paused for a moment before responding. "I'm not coming back. Don't try to convince me." I didn't feel the need to explain further. I had made up my mind long ago, and I didn't want to go back to an environment where I had felt neglected and unappreciated. It wasn't about money or position. It was about realizing that I deserved better than that. The sense of freedom and pride after saying those words was indescribable. I knew I hadn't been wrong in leaving. I had found my true worth. And I wasn't going to let my old company take that away from me again. But a week later, I got another call from my old company, a call I never could have expected. A week after I turned down the offer to return to my old company, I thought I had completely moved on from them. I had a new job, a new environment, and a new salary. It felt like I was living an entirely different life. But then, on a Tuesday afternoon, as I sat in my office, an unexpected call came through. I looked at the screen and saw the name of the senior director from my old company. This time, I didn't hesitate to pick up. "We've had a change of heart." His voice was urgent, almost desperate. "Things have changed, and we really want you to come back. We're willing to meet all your demands. You're the only one who can fix this." In that moment, it felt like everything had just been piled onto me. How could they suddenly change their minds and be ready to change everything just to have me back? I felt a mixture of smugness and disbelief. They wanted me to return. But why wait until the company was on the verge of collapse to realize my worth? Why not do this earlier when I was still giving everything I had? "So what now?" I replied calmly, though inside, I was a storm of emotions. "Why wait until now to call me? Why didn't you do this before I made the decision to leave?" He paused for a moment, seemingly unable to come up with a satisfactory answer. "The situation is very bad right now. Projects are at a standstill, and the company is suffering huge losses. We can't keep going like this." A part of me wanted to laugh at their weakness, but I also understood that the collapse of the company was a huge shock to everyone still there. Still, I couldn't deny that part of me felt proud of my decision. I wasn't the only one who had left, and now the company realized they had lost people of value. "We'll meet every demand of yours, anything you want," he continued, his voice now pleading. "Salary, responsibilities, everything. Just come back and help us." I thought for a moment. Part of me wanted to say I'd return just to get the compensation I deserved, but logic and self-respect told me not to make the same mistake again. I had realized something important. I couldn't work with people who only used me as a tool when they needed it, then discarded me when things got tough. This company didn't care about me, and I couldn't go back to an environment where my contributions were never valued. "I've made my decision," I replied, gently but firmly. "Nothing can change that." When the call ended, I felt lighter and freer than ever before. I no longer had to face the deceit and disrespect. I knew I had made the right choice, and I would never regret it. Everything had changed, and so had I. From this moment on, I would never let myself be treated like that again.